Hello, and welcome to the IALD webinar, Work-Life Balance, Parenting and Lighting. My name is Joe de Guzman, Senior Certification Coordinator for the IALD. With that, let me pass it along to our panelists, starting with Lisa Reed. Lisa, take it away.
Hi, thanks for being here. It is Teacher and Nurse Appreciation Week, so I thought it would be fitting to, even though they're both retired, to recognize my parents who are a teacher and a nurse, and to thank them for the way they parented me to make me believe that I could be anything that I wanted to be. So I'm Lisa Reed with Envision Lighting Design. I'm one of the 80%. In a survey we conducted, we found out that 20% of women-owned lighting design firms were started unrelated to motherhood. That means the other 80% of women-owned lighting design firms had something to do with the fact that they had kids. And that's, in fact, one reason that I started Envision Lighting Design. And I have my kids with me here today. They're gonna sneak into the screen. This is Aaron.
Hello.
He's 19, finishing up his freshman year in college and about to start an internship with PNNL. So excited for him. And then I have Connor. He is 17 and finishing his junior year in high school and thinking about all things college. And then finally, I have Eric. Eric is an international student who has lived with us since August. And today is Eric's 17th birthday. Happy birthday to Eric. I am gonna pass this next to the one with the next youngest children, Carla.
Thanks, Lisa. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. My name's Carla Bukowski, and Lisa and I have known each other since we were Aaron's age, actually. And I'm glad to be part of this panel. So I have been in the lighting industry for about 25 years in many roles. I'm currently regional spec sales manager for Cooper Lighting, but I have done everything from engineering, lighting design, and worked for a variety of manufacturers. And I also have two kids. I have my daughter, Jax. She is 16 and just finishing up sophomore year in high school. And my son, Alex, he is 13, and he is showing how much taller he is. He's 13 and just finishing up 7th grade in middle school. And I will pass it over to Justin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Brown. I'm a principal at Lamb Partners in Cambridge. I've been in lighting for 22 years now, I think. Yep. And I have two kids, one of which is in a webinar, but the other one is right here. Here she is. That's Avery. She's about to be 14 next month. And Connor will be 12 in July. So, and that over there is Brittany, who used to work for us not too long ago.
Thanks, Justin. Hey guys, I'm Brittany Lynch. I'm a lighting designer, project manager now at Clinton and Associates. And I'd like to say that I'm extremely fortunate to have a career in a field I really am passionate about. Also, I'm a mother to two little kids who are behind me, and if I try to take them away from their devices, there will be hell to pay. Bradley is 7. And then Essie is underneath the table and she's 3. Can you wave? No, okay. Yeah, so I also have a husband who's an architect and is on a webinar right now. So there's no promises that my seat will be right here the whole time. I may float around a little bit, but this is really important and I'm very excited to talk about what it means to be a parent in lighting.
All right, great. So moving into the presentation, why did the IALD ask us to talk about parenting and lighting? On the next slide, you'll see in 2018, Emily Klingensmith with Schuler Shook and I conducted a survey to find out if and why women were leaving lighting design after becoming mothers. We did an anonymous survey of women in the United States who were or had been in lighting design. And we presented those results at Enlighten Americas in 2018. And I'm going to briefly share some of the most interesting results of that survey. On the next slide, we started by asking women about their household and just their lives outside of work. And we found that for 9 out of 11 specific household tasks, the women reported that they were primarily responsible for the task. And the other 2 tasks, they reported, on the next slide, you'll see that their partner was primarily responsible. And this was important because it shows that women are carrying a load outside of work. Some of that's a mental load. We asked the question during our presentation, you know, who in your home is responsible for remembering or noticing that you're about to run out of toilet paper? That wasn't such a triggering question back then. Another, you know, example of that mental load is who's responsible for remembering, you know, that it's Aunt Beulah's birthday coming up and you got to go get a card and get it in the mail and things like that. So those are those household tasks that we found that all women in our survey were reporting they were primarily responsible for. Next, we asked about parenthood and the parenting tasks, and we found way too many slides there. We found that when it came to parenting tasks, if you go back one more, the load got even heavier. Mothers reported that they were primarily responsible for 11 of 15 specific parenting tasks, everything from nighttime feedings to helping with college applications. And so then the next question is, well, okay, well, where was their partner primarily responsible? And on the next slide, you see that most of the women in our survey did not report that their partner was primarily responsible for any parenting tasks. But the best case scenario was a 50-50 split in 4 of the tasks. That 5th one, homework assistance, mom edged out the 50-50 split, but it just wouldn't fit on the previous slide, so we put it here. We did also ask about workplace factors, and on the next slide, you'll see a word cloud that just represents some of the write-in answers to our survey, with flexibility showing up prominently as something that most women and mothers report would help them a lot in their work-life balance. I'm going to show one more slide from the 2018 presentation. We asked about a lot of different work benefits. We asked about part-time hours, the ability to work from home, and flex time. This one was the most exaggerated example, that overall the women in our survey answered, 29% of them said flex time was not allowed, but of the mothers who left design answering our survey, 49% of them said flex time was not allowed. So we thought that, you know, this could be a factor in mothers leaving lighting design. We'll share a link at the end of this presentation to all of the results of that survey. It's really important information, and I think it's really telling and useful. But now we would like to know who is here and who are we talking about today. So first of all, parenting is not just for moms. We've learned since our survey that if we reframe this conversation and we talk about parenting, and no, that was good. We're good on parenting. If we talk about parenting as something that's not just for moms, but it's everybody, it's moms and dads too, that really is beneficial for moms to not talk about it as a mom's issue. So that's why Justin is here today. Thank you for representing dads on the panel. It's also, of course, not just a lighting design issue. So this is one of the topics that crosses that LARC partner boundary, and that's a reason that Carla's here on our panel today representing the LARC. So the first survey question is not quite as easy as it looks. Are you a parent? It's not a yes or no answer, but we'd like you, the participants, to answer this poll. So read carefully, but are you a parent, and kind of what's your parental status, I guess?
And while you're all busy answering and reading through these various answers, as Lisa said, it's not as easy as it sounded. I'm just going to tell a quick little story. So I am a regional sales manager. I am not currently, but generally travel a significant amount of time for my job. As you saw, I have 2 teenagers, but I've been traveling since since my youngest was in kindergarten. So quite some time. And in the last year, I was traveling and working with one of my lighting agents, and he very innocently asked me, "Who takes care of your kids when you're on the road?" Now, that may seem like an innocent question, but that actually hit me really hard, because it made me really think about the fact that my husband would not have been asked that question if he was on the road. And I think that maybe there's a lot of people with similar experiences.
So let's see. It looks like of our attendees here, the majority of you are mothers with a partner. And then the next most common answer, 25% of you are not parents. I hope that means that you are managing parents and here to learn how to be a good manager. And then a good percentage, 20%, are fathers with a partner. And then we have a small number who are single fathers and single mothers. Looks like 4% of each. So we want to make sure that we represent you when we talk today too about these issues. Let's see. Moving on, we have another question for you. Not all stages of parenting are equal, at least not in my experience. And the early years are definitely tough. I think even more so during this pandemic. So in our 2018 survey, we learned that 70% of mothers who left lighting design did so in the first 6 years of becoming a mother. So I think that says a lot about those early years and how tough they are. Britt's our panelist who's in the middle of that right now. So while you're answering this survey, maybe she can talk to us about that a bit. And by the way, if you don't have children, you can check, I don't know, the 0 to 5 box, I think.
Oh, that might falsely inflate it a little bit.
Yeah, don't answer. Can they not answer?
Don't answer, I think.
Yeah.
They can choose not to answer. It will skew our results.
Okay. Yeah, right. Guys, I am so tired. I've had 5 shots of espresso and I could easily go sit on the couch for a nap right now. Even like with the excitement of this webinar, I'm still like super exhausted. Because it does take a lot. Before I signed on to this call, I was stressing like, what am I gonna do with my kids? My husband is on a call right now, and so iPads it is. We were running around outside. I was trying to get energy out. You know, per every phone call that I have with a client, my son comes up to tell me anything and everything that's on his mind, because, you know, kids, they don't know boundaries. And with this crisis or what's happening right now, we really are learning more about our kids, but at the same time, it's pulling our brains in so many different directions that it just becomes, even if it's a good day, even if everybody does what they're supposed to do, it's still really exhausting. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, thank you. I remember how exhausting it was. But, so yeah, I don't know if those results got skewed because I said to check that box, but it looks like a lot of people are in that same stage of life that you are, Britt, with younger kids. And then looks like the ages of kids of the parents attending today kind of decrease as they get older. So that makes sense. Hopefully we have relevant content for everybody who are actively parenting. Now we're going to move into what I would consider kind of the meat of this, and it's really a conversation, hopefully full of grace and maybe some ideas for you about how we're getting through it. The first, maybe most important question is, how are you staying mentally and physically healthy? What are you doing? What are you eating? What are your boundaries? So Justin, you had some good answers to that question when we talked before.
Yes, thanks, Lisa. I first of all want to recognize that I am a bit of an outsider in this group here because, and I was talking to my wife about this. She was like, "Make sure you mention that I do most of the parenting." I was like, "Okay, yes, dear." And it's true. She does the lion's share. She's a preschool teacher. Her day is shorter, and it's very convenient because our kids are still getting out of school. Well, before the pandemic, 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and she would finish an hour before that, and it was very convenient. And then here I am working all hours of the day, doing my role as the bringing home the bacon kind of thing. And so being up here, so we've been in New Hampshire for 8 weeks now, and it happens to be where I grew up, and so I'm kind of coming home again in a way. And my role has been to kind of take the kids out and do stuff with them when Teresa is too tired, because she's also doing her classwork with her kids during the day as well. So she's just usually, totally knackered by the end of the day. And so, much to my delight, I've had an opportunity to do a lot of the things that I did as a kid, which was go outside. So I had, I've got a bunch of images here. My images are the first 5 across the top of the page here. Since we've been up here, we've seen a lot of nature, which is wonderful. And this is actually in chronological order, starting from the left. The first warm day we were doing yard work, and I found what I thought was a stick, but no, it was a tiny little snake. And it was hardly moving, but it was sunny and warm, so I put it in my daughter's hand and said, "Just hold it for a second." And then, like magic, the snake came alive, and we played with the snake for the day. It was great. And then a little bit later, we went down to the lake, and lo and behold, she found a salamander. So we played with the salamander for a little while. And this is all the stuff I did as a kid, because we didn't have television up here. There's no computers or anything. So we just went outside all the time. We did that a lot. And then all the way over on the right, this was the best part so far, is we were able to find and video spring peepers. So not only are they ridiculously small, they're tiny little guys like this, but as soon as you get close to them, they stop peeping. So it took a long time to find them, but we did it as a family at night, and it was really fun. We had a great time. So that part has been sort of a recharging element to it. We've also been trying, mostly unsuccessfully, to limit screen time. So we've been playing a lot of games and stuff. We had a fantastic Scrabble game not too long ago. But the other thing for me, and this is the personal thing, is having projects outside of work. I'm a very project-related person. I always have way too many things going on outside of work that keep me mentally and physically active. And at the moment, we're renovating the kitchen up here, and we said, well, we can't afford someone else doing our countertops. Let's just do it ourselves. So last weekend, we built the forms and poured our very first concrete countertop, and here it is. And it's amazing. It was so completely exhausting, but on a very different level than work exhaustion, because it was physical. And then, of course, once you start mixing the concrete and start pouring, you can't stop. So that was very fulfilling, and again, it was a very kind of a recharging moment that kind of made sitting at the desk, 8-10 hours a day a little more bearable when you knew you had things like this outside kind of waiting for you. So yeah, so that kind of, I think it sort of wraps together kind of what I envision my role as I guess the dad, and but also how to recharge myself and stay healthy mentally. And then I'll pass the baton to Britt. I think she's got the next group of photos.
Yeah. Well, that was awesome, Justin. Thanks for sharing. I wish I could pour concrete countertops. I mean,
Use your hand, just fly on out. Come on.
right? Well, so with us, we live in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. At least what's really great, I'm in the Boulder, Colorado area. And so we have a lot of like trail systems and actually a big common backyard area where my kids can play. So one of my images of my kids is being outside because I really want to encourage independent play. I don't want to have to be the person refereeing all the time. And when we're in our 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, most of the time that seems to happen. So we try to get outside as much as possible. We'll try to go on bike rides. I just bought a bike trailer this week and we've had awesome little bike rides together. So I think just trying to figure out when are my kids not ripping each other apart besides, you know, being on the screens, as you can see. They're quite peaceful, but at other times it's not. And so just kind of understanding what they respond well to and like just going for it. And hopefully it requires as little amount of work, mental work for me. So that's what I try to do there. Also, I'm really into eating lots of sweets. So there's a picture of the birthday cake that I had, which is really good. Makes me really, really happy. So whatever, who cares? But then the next picture is of me, of one of the trails to represent that I have actually been running more. I think I've gotten out like on average 3 to 4 times per week now, which is like insanely high. Usually I'd only exercise once or twice a week, but it was because I needed to have that, like, what I was finding is that in the afternoons, it was my worst hours and I couldn't sit down and figure out, I couldn't sit down and make myself be productive. And so I gave myself this little treat, this, you know, dangling carrot at the end of my day that you get to go outside for whatever you want to do for half an hour, and that's going to help. And then also coffee, lots and lots of coffee. I got a really nice espresso machine as a COVID-19 quarantine purchase, and it's been the best. And gardening also has been fun, but I would say it hasn't been super successful when the kids are involved because they just want to dig up plants in our tiny garden plot or make mud piles, but it's fun. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Carla, how about you? What would you like to talk about?
Thanks, Brittany. You know, as Lisa said, I've been there. I remember, and you know, we're all finding our way in this craziness. First of all, I have to tell you all what my husband says about this. He says that quarantine is the dream of any dad with a 16-year-old daughter because she can't go anywhere, right? So, but other than that, the struggle that I am finding is that I am a huge extrovert, and I'm sure that I know many of you on the call, you know, I get my energy from people. And most of my family is not that way. They're a little bit more introverted. So this sort of staying at home time has, it's been hard on everyone, of course, but it's affected them a little bit differently. And so one of the things that I'm doing for myself is puzzles. I love puzzles. I did them all the time as a kid, and my family just doesn't really enjoy that. So I have found my own little corner where I just keep a puzzle going all the time, and I find that that really helps. The other thing that I have been so happy about is having dinner together every night. That's not something that our family is able to do based on my travel, based on teenage kids' schedules. You know, we're lucky sometimes to get once a week, and we've had dinner together pretty much every single night, even if it's just everybody's sitting around eating leftovers, right? So that's been really great to do that. And a little thing that I do to get my teenagers talking is we have this thing called One Good Thing. And every night at dinner, somebody starts it and you say, what's your one good thing today? One good thing that happened. You know, it could be as simple as, hey, I helped mom with dinner, or I didn't have to cook dinner, or, you know, but they have to each do one good thing and then they pass it on to the next person. So that's been a lot of fun. We've always done that for quite a while, but now it's every day. Lots and lots of board games. With teenagers, we have the ability to play lots. The picture does not even begin to show the games that we've played. And exercise. Brittany mentioned this already. I am pretty regular at exercising and have been for quite some time. And one of my tips is, if you do that, keep doing it. It's really important to keep yourself active, to keep sort of a schedule. If you usually work out in the morning, maybe work out a little bit later in the morning, but keep going with that, right? And you can see my dog was joining me doing yoga. Didn't do a downward dog though. And then fire pit. I, as I mentioned, I'm an extrovert. So we have found a way, even though I live in the Chicago area, very urban, we have quite a large patio space in the back. So we measured it out, because I am an engineer, measured it out, made sure that everybody was 6 feet apart, and we're able to have, one other family come over where the kids played a game, an interactive game on their own phones, right? And the adults were able to talk. So, I may get a little shaming for that, but we definitely stayed more than 6 feet apart, and everybody brought their own beverages. How about Lisa? I see pandemic there. I'm not sure I'd have played that game.
Yeah, that's the one board game I've played, and I have to say that was kind of stressful. I don't think I recommend. We won though, so that's good news, everyone. We won pandemic. It's a if you don't know, what is that called, where you work together to win a board game instead of competing against each other. So we all worked together and beat the pandemic. There are slides here. That balloon was from my kiddo's school on prom night, an unexpected surprise, just acknowledging the things missed and caring for them, and acknowledging the losses that the kids are experiencing through this time too. Outdoor walks. The fruit there, I was so excited that day. Long before this, we started getting food shipped from Imperfect. It was Imperfect Produce, became Imperfect Foods as a way of reducing food waste. And then that's turned into a real lifesaver, when it's hard to get to the grocery store, or sometimes things weren't even available, and I could get eggs from Imperfect or milk, and without that extra trip to the store. So I've got a link later if anybody wants to see if that's available in your area. And then, I don't know, I wanted to talk about boundaries. I was rushing to the bathroom before a call one day to find my college student set up in my bathroom with a friend doing FaceTime on his phone, and his comment was, "It's quiet in here," So I guess everybody has to find their place and find your boundaries. I also had a conversation with a single mom this morning to just make sure that we were representing some of the ways that they are staying mentally and physically healthy through this. And Carla, when you talked about your kids, getting them to talk at dinner, she mentioned that she was reading a book, and that was almost like her cheering section. And she would go back to that book and read it when she, needed to talk to someone. And it was how to talk so your kids will listen, and listen so your kids will talk. So it sounds like you're implementing some of those strategies. And another comment that she made that I just thought was worth sharing with everybody is to be careful and recognize everybody's situation. So if you're a single mom of, young kids, and you're at the grocery store with your kids, if you don't have any other resource, you can't leave them at home, so be careful when you're looking around. Don't make judgments about the people you see. I thought that was a good comment and worth sharing. So we want to keep this conversational. So now we have another question for our attendees. I think sometimes, especially moms, feel like they want to have it all, but what we found in our survey, that the thing we needed the most from our employers were flexibility and understanding. So yeah, we're wondering if you're working reduced hours for whatever reason. Britt, you want to share a little bit about?
Yeah, I think 3 weeks in, maybe not even that much, 2.5 weeks in, I realized that my quality of life was downright scary. I think I had never felt anything that overwhelming before. And I approached my superiors and I was like, you guys, I can't do this. If I want to be a healthy worker, if you want me to be the most productive, you know, I need to look at reducing my hours. And actually, both me and my husband were splitting the care, and both of us are working from home, and we're both able to reduce our hours. And I would say that there's no way we can make it through this without that ability, because it's a lot to take care of them and work.
Yeah, I'm sure. I really can't imagine. I mean, that flexibility is important always, especially now. It looks like I'm looking at the answers here. It looks like just about half of you say you're working the same amount as before. And a quarter of you say, no, you're working more than before. And the other quarter are working less, with 15% of those being taking care of dependents, maybe just a couple because of reduced hours. There it is, your company cut your hours, and or some other reason. So thank you, everyone. So let's see. That brings us to the next slide. Thinking about what are some realistic expectations for this time specifically, and for parenting in general. We've kind of talked about it. For parents of younger kids, everybody I know who has younger kids has some kind of schedule they're trying to follow. This schedule belongs to Liz, one of my teammates, and she's been following it, since mid-March. Another thing that's been kind of cool about this is finding out that clients and everybody, clients are real people too. Maybe not finding that out, but just really getting to see the real side of them. So the second picture down on the first column is one of the architects we know sent that to me and said that his 5-year-old daughter brought this to him, and it's a computer, and she made a computer so that she could work like dad, so that she could help dad with her work. And I thought that was really cool. And I'm going to come back to that. But the bottom picture there are some door signs. One of the things is, before all this, I worked from home a little bit too. And, if my dog would bark or something in the middle of a conference call, it was always really embarrassing. And it's been kind of nice now to just be like, oh, yep, sorry, dog's barking, kids making noise, because everybody's working from home. So that expectation is set for everyone. But these are some door signs. There's a link at the end. If you want to stick those on your doorbell or on the outside of your office or bathroom or wherever you're working, might help. Who knows? But Justin, I know that you've brought up a couple of times the way that this working from home and the kids actually getting to see us work, how is that impacting or impressing them? So I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. The boy there with the black face mask, that's my son, and his sister's an example of her weekly work schedule is below. So the city of Cambridge was pretty incredible. In about a day, they were able to get a Chromebook to every student in the public school system from grades 1 through 12, I think, something like that. And literally the next day, most people just split, including us. And we've been up here in New Hampshire that whole time. So, and very quickly they got into a routine that's constantly evolving about how they're doing their schoolwork and stuff. And it's funny, most mornings I'm in here, Connor's in his room, Avery's in her room, and Teresa's in her little de facto classroom set up in our living room. And we're all kind of working, so it kind of feels like a little office. But two of the workers are definitely underage, and that should be looked into. But still, so when I was in Cambridge, I would just be gone, and usually at the end of the day, Teresa would check in and be like, "Are you coming home for dinner tonight?" And I'd be like, "Oh, maybe." fortunately, I lived close enough that, you know, it was only a mile and a half away, but sometimes it was just more efficient for me to stay. But now they get to see how much I'm working, and I think about, it's like, man, is this going to totally turn them off? Are they going to be like, oh, I'm gonna start playing the lottery a lot more because this is working for a living is totally overrated. So I think about that a lot, and also, you know, what the world's going to be like for them when they are kind of entering the workforce, I guess. You know, I think one interesting thing about this whole situation is that, you know, it's showing how human we are, and that part is can be hilarious, but it's but I think a lot of people, and we talk about this in our management meetings, I think probably half the people in our office are going to probably choose to work from home a lot more than they used to, because we've been able to prove that it works, and we want to give people that flexibility. So that's been an interesting thing.
Well, I was thinking about this. I don't know if we've really talked about it before, but the term realistic expectation is very subjective. And I think there's a lot of people right now who have different expectations on themselves based on their situation. And that just seems to be so fluid because of everything that's going on. And one thing that I brought up before is like, you know, I'm accomplishing more than I ever have before. I mean, if I wrote it all down, I'd be like, whoa, this is crazy, girl. But honestly, I don't feel that good. And I was trying to figure out, like, what is the root behind this feeling? Why do I feel like icky after every day? And I realized a lot of it is tied to the validation I need to feel in my work performance, in my career. And you know, with these kids behind me, like I can't even be fully present during our webinar because I'm trying to make sure they're not, you know, fighting. so it's like, what is the term realistic subjectively mean to everyone? And, you know, what is your work performance? What do you expect for yourself as you are working throughout the day? And are you meeting that expectation? Is your expectation too high or too low? And, you know, just going into like the work culture, something that is across the US, I believe the reigning work culture is that if you want that promotion, then you have to show that you are available and working your butt off to prove it. And parenting goes at odds with that. And then you just add being together and being a full-time mom and working at the same time. It's just like, it's a recipe for feeling completely let down pretty much all the time.
Brittany, I'd say don't let it get you down. I mean, I think we were emailing a little bit earlier this morning, and you know, I think any parent, at least any mom who has kids that age, are all feeling like, or have at some point felt like they're not 100% there at home and they're not 100% there at work. And I think that was true even before all of this. So, Brittany, I say give yourself a break, right? that's my expectation for you. Couple of other things, you know, Lisa already mentioned dogs barking. I mean, how I have to say, one of the things that I've been so that I've enjoyed, if I can say that, about this is you get a look into people's lives that you didn't have before, right? And that's not only true of people on webinars. You know, you guys met my kids, my dogs are in the picture there on the top right, but even like news anchors and weathermen and all, like you're seeing like, okay, these are all real people. We're all real people and we're all in this together. And so I feel like there's actually in some ways a more personal touch to almost everything. You know, we've become accepting of the dogs barking or the baby crying, or I think somebody had a story about, you know, they had to run off of a webinar because their child fell down, right? And they had to make sure that they were okay. Like, you know, and that's just become normal. And how long did that take? 6 weeks, right? I actually moved into a traveling job so that I could have more flexibility. Sounds a little bit counterintuitive, right? So it really speaks to Lisa's earlier survey, I moved to a job where I traveled so that when I was home, I had more flexibility to be with my kids. So, maybe we've all discovered that there are ways to have more flexibility for all parents without hopefully more pandemics, right? But anyway, those dogs right there, they sleep in my office every day. I say go to work and they come and those are their office beds. They're the most spoiled dogs ever. They have like 3 beds each, one in the family room, one in the bedroom. But as soon as the phone rings, they are barking, they are in my face, right? They look very innocent right there, but the bottom picture, my kids have been doing a lot in the kitchen, right? We're all encouraging our families to take up new hobbies or try new things, but that's kind of a disaster waiting to happen. And how comfortable am I being upstairs in my office when the kids are baking in the kitchen, even as teenagers, maybe. And then, take advantage of the gifts that we get, right? I have had a home office for many years, and on a beautiful Chicago spring day, I love to sit outside and get my laptop and work on my deck, right? Get a little vitamin D, change of scenery. I can't really be with anyone, but at least I can get some time outside. And I think that, allowing yourself to say, it's okay to sit outside. I don't have to sit in my office all day long.
So I think that brings us to the now what, which is the next slide. What elements of quarantine do we want to keep moving forward? And I want to remind everybody, we're kind of getting toward the end, and if you have any questions, we definitely want to have a conversation here in the last minutes of this. These are the things that we put together as feeling like they were important takeaways that we want you to take away from this, but that we would also like to take away into the future whenever the new normal comes. And for me, my big one is rethinking how we measure productivity. It really bugs me that employers feel like they need to see butts in seats to know whether their team is working. I think it's pretty easy to measure, the quality of work and the quantity of work, and maybe not get so concerned about how long it took somebody to get that done. Britt, you mentioned that parenting is essential. Maybe those weren't your exact words, but I felt like that was a really good point. You want to elaborate on that?
Of course. I think it's right now, it's kind of seen and treated as like an extracurricular activity. If you look at, like PTO days, if you have to stay home with your kid that's sick, that's a PTO day, but it's equivalent to somebody going and taking the day to go, hang gliding or something. So I feel like there's still, and it's getting better now that we're talking about it more, but there's this still kind of stigma that, oh, what you're doing as a parent is equivalent to somebody taking a vacation day or something. It's like, we need to bring that so that it's on the same level. And I believe that what's good about everybody staying home and daycares being closed is that it's completely obvious that childcare and support for parents is essential in order for our work to continue as is. For example, I have to work reduced hours. If we have childcare, then I wouldn't. So I think it's helping that come to the surface. And I like Justin was talking about recharging your batteries. I think we were talking about that, right, Justin, with taking longer vacations and getting that time.
I think it's one thing I wanted to add. We were talking, in the weeks before this. I think I mentioned reading an article about companies that don't have a vacation policy, and people can take them whenever they want, when they feel they need them, however long they need. And studies have shown that doesn't have any noticeable decrease in productivity. In fact, it can have the opposite effect because there's no stress involved with that event that's supposed to be stress reducing. So I think that's a testament to our kind of our amazing flexibility and adaptability as a species. I frequently say this, and that's why we're the dominant species, because we're so damn adaptable to the situation. So being able to work outside or in your kitchen, my kids in their bedrooms, here in this tiny little, corner office in my bedroom here, we're still getting stuff done, and we're still being productive. So I feel like if there was a little bit more faith that we're still being done without having a butt in a seat, like you said, Lisa, that can be a huge weight off sort of our collective shoulders, and being a business owner, we're thinking about that. I'm thinking about that a lot, and it's like I'm checking in with my employees, like, hey, how you guys doing? Hey, don't worry about it. If you can't get to that, we're going to get through this. Everyone else is kind of going through the same thing, so there are going to be delays and stuff like that. So I'm trying to look on the brighter side of the situation. Hopefully it will translate into a more relaxed, flexible environment that will really nurture the parenting side, which is exactly right. It's completely essential. So those first 5 years are hugely important. My wife left her one career because we decided that it was more important to have someone at home those first 5 years of the kid's life. Now she's back with a second career. Now the kids are older, but it's huge. It's huge. So hopefully this is going to kind of shift things around a little bit so that there's more energy and thought devoted to making time for parenting.
Yeah, I think that the biggest takeaway that we can get from this, and hopefully all of you on the phone is that you aren't alone, right? We're all in this together, and whether your kids are young or old, even those of us with older kids, we remember, right? Like, so when an employee reaches out and says, hey, I can't do this all, I need reduced hours, right? Oh yeah, I remember those years, right? You're like in the brain fog or something. But you're not alone. And I think having conversations like this, including the survey that Lisa and Emily did a couple of years ago, I think this is really critical. I mean, parenting has changed significantly even since my kids, paternity leave was not even a thing. 16. I think my husband took one day off when each kid was born, right? So, these conversations are happening, and I think that, as an industry, because we're so tight and close with each other, I think that we can have these conversations maybe in a much more meaningful way than some of the big corporate levels can.
Plus, I always say, I think lighting designers are some of the most creative people, so we should be able to solve these problems. The next slide is a list of resources, and then we can open it up for questions and answers. So I believe these links will be available later, but there they are. I know they're long if you want to copy any down. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. Give me 1 second while I load that up. The links will be available if when this gets posted to our YouTube page. All these links will be in the description of the video, so you can go there and go ahead and do that. Let me load up the questions here. 1 moment. Again, if you do have questions, use that questions box on the right-hand side. This one is for Carla. Do you expect less travel once things get back to quote-unquote normal?
That's a great question. I actually, I'm going to say I hope not. I think it'll take a little time to get back to where we were. I think it's going to take time for customers to be comfortable letting people who travel into their offices. So I think it will take some time, but I certainly hope that in the long run, we're not going to have less travel. Again, I said I'm an extrovert, right? I love spending time with my customers. I love spending time with designers. I grew up in the lighting design world, right? I started my career as a specifier. And now that my kids are older, travel has become not only easier, but also something that we really look forward to. I have often in the last 5 years had my kids, we'll go out early for a trip that I have to go on and spend some time, and then they'll fly home on their own. Or something like that. And that's just one of the things that has worked well for my family. So, it's a long answer to say, really, I certainly hope not. I think that it's going to come back. It'll take a little time.
Okay.
Well, and I would add, I mean, I've seen some of these conversations starting already that, you know, for lighting, we need to see the products. It doesn't look the same on a screen. So we hope that you can come back soon too.
Agreed.
On to the next one. This one's for Justin. For those of you who manage people, has the last couple of months changed your perspectives on how flexible you should or will be on allowing employees to have more freedom and autonomy to work from home?
Oh, definitely. We've been talking about it, nonstop. It's a huge component of our weekly management meetings. And what I love about our office is that we're soliciting feedback from everybody. So we've gotten great feedback from other people and say, hey, can we try this? Let's try that. We've increased the internet speed in the office because everyone is remoting in, and it was a bottleneck, so we did that. Certainly with flexible time, we've got 2 people, Lisa and Dan, Brittany, who have young kids as well, and it's super challenging for them. Oh, and Matt as well. And they're they can just take the time that they need. It's no big deal. We're figuring it out. We made sure that everyone had access to a laptop if they needed one, if they didn't want to use their home computer to work. So yeah, I feel really good about what we've been doing, but mostly I feel good that we have open channels of communication with our employees, because ultimately, we can't anticipate everybody's needs, and we want to be flexible, but they have to feel comfortable coming to us and saying, hey, I'm really struggling, or this would really help me. Can we try this? And so far we haven't said no to anything, and it's working so far. Still, we definitely all want to get back together, but it's been an eye-opening experience, and like I said, I think it's going to translate into more people taking advantage of that. When this crisis is over, and hopefully that's going to help people feel that work isn't this monstrous weight on them. They have some flexibility.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. Next question is for Brittany. Can you propose a model for a different culture surrounding the perspective of childcare as essential versus, quote, indulgent, or equated to a vacation day?
I love that question. I wonder if I could guess who asked that. I think Denmark. I've been reading books. There's a lot of support in Australia and Denmark because of work hours. So I think at least one of those countries, they end their day at around strictly at 3. And you are kind of shamed if you don't leave and go home. I think that's, important. So there has to be, I think if that can be supported, that when I leave early, I guess, so then transferring that to the US, when I leave early to go pick up my kids, I don't want to feel like I'm getting the stink eye from other people because they don't understand and they think that. So maybe it just needs to start happening more, and then it'll be more accepted. So that would hopefully help that shift.
Okay. Next question. Here we go. Is there a possibility of a shorter work week across the board, or is the answer flex time? Let's start with Lisa.
Well, I mean, I think there is that possibility. I've seen and I've heard other people say that they're more productive and getting more done in fewer hours. They're not commuting. I know that there are a lot of companies, we saw in our survey, companies that were doing summer Fridays. A couple of the companies called it essential, that they had to take Fridays off in the summertime. And I know that's become more and more popular. It hasn't really taken off in St. Louis here, but the work gets done, right? So I definitely think that's possible. What was the second part of the question? Not just shorter work week, but
or just changing it to flex time?
Yeah, well, I personally, for my team, don't have big issues with when the work gets done. And we definitely have moms who work, early in the morning or late at night. So I think flex time's an easy option. But I think it's possible that a shorter work week. I mean,
And
it's
can I?
countries. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to add to that. So when my kids were young, I actually for 6 years worked 4 days a week, and it was a negotiated. It was actually 2 different firms. One was design, one was manufacturing, and it was a conversation that I had from the very beginning. Like, I don't want 4 10s, right? I don't want to squeeze everything into 4 days. I want to work a reduced. It was 32 hours. We all know how that goes. But I had Fridays off for 6 years, and it was wonderful. And I'm actually currently working reduced, and I technically have Fridays off. So I'm here with all you though, because this is where I want to be. So I think that there's definitely the possibility of it, and I think now's the time for us to sort of reset, right, and have those conversations. Because like Brittany said, you may become more productive in the end, right? You may be getting nearly as much done and getting paid for less hours. I'm just saying to all the managers out there, right? If you're more productive in those 4 days, you're getting paid less in the same amount of work. So it might work out for everybody.
Yeah, we're definitely keeping track of all this data, since everyone started working from home, and I think it's going to be very interesting to study it when we quote unquote get back to normal to see that. But
All right, we have time for 2 more. So here's the first one. With studio culture being so important to creatives and designers, what steps are firms taking to mimic that amidst the current quarantining challenges?
Slack.
I was just going to say Slack channels
Yeah.
for projects.
I mean, Slack is. I mean, we've been using it for years, but it's crazy now how much it gets used, and we actually have channels created for specific projects. And okay, let's meet, and then the call is started, and then you can join and jump off when you need to. It's not bad. You can share your screen. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but I couldn't imagine working without it, honestly.
Yeah. For us, we've had Microsoft Teams, but we really weren't using it as well as we could. We've had a remote employee for years, and we weren't using Teams to get in touch with her daily. And now we are. And yeah, somebody can just put out the call if they need help on a project, and we jump on and answer, and it's almost as good, not quite.
All right, and the last one I'll open up to everybody. In the past, weeks or months of this, name one moment where you laughed out loud or smiled. Let's start
preparing for this. We've had a lot of fun getting to know each other, getting ready for this call, and we've all had some laughs and plenty of smiles getting ready for this.
Anybody else?
I'll go next. So we were talking about weird stuff happening in the background of web conferences. So I was on a call and with one of my designers, and all of a sudden all of us heard something about waffles. Like, hey, did you want waffles? What do you want? Waffles. And everyone got quiet, and then I said, oh man, I want waffles now. And then on the Slack channel, it popped up. It was 2 of our employees who are married, working side by side from their apartment. And one guy was on the call. He swore he had muted himself. He had not, but his wife was asking him if he wanted waffles from the rep who had baked waffles and was bringing them around to people. And so then she's like, did you hear Jack talking about waffles? I said, oh yes, we all did. Thanks a lot. Now we're all starving for waffles. So that was pretty funny.
And with that, and being lunchtime in Chicago, maybe I will be making some waffles.
There you go.
Thank you so much, panelists, for the time, especially being parents. We greatly, the ILD greatly appreciates it. The attendees greatly appreciate it. So thank you so much for chiseling out some time, not only today, but in the time leading up to the session. Attendees, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you again. Everyone have a great rest of your day or evening, wherever you are, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.